These are short snippets from the Quantum Future breakout sessions.
Moving on to group number 6, Richard Murray, your discussion was around learning across industry verticals, chem, fintech, and logistics. I guess that builds quite nicely on Christopher's maybe. What was your discussion?
Thanks, Andrew. So another group that had a brief to talk mostly about software and applications and spent most of our time talking about hardware. So let me talk a little bit first about what we did talk about in terms of the software space. So we heard from one person who was really actively involved in a really strong community in North Africa, working on quantum algorithms using sort of open source platforms and things. And I think partly a lot of the group felt like part of the ingenuity that will come into this space will be through this just huge emerging community of users and developers of quantum algorithms. And I think I'm trying to look through my notes. I think that's pretty much where we ended in terms of application specific stuff. Other than just to say, there are a lot of really talented people out there who will solve that problem and apply quantum systems, quantum hardware to new applications. I think then pretty much we came to the same conclusion, saying the hardware needs to move on, and that there are a few different approaches towards that materializing. We spent a bunch of time talking about what the actual landscape, how it might evolve. In the long term, in the short term, we are in a pre-competitive mode at the moment where everything is very collaborative, but the community should get used to what might happen as things become more competitive before quantum computing becomes more mainstream. And that was interesting, a number of different points about standardization and other things like this. So then I think on the majority of the conversation, it was around how quantum systems will provide value to multiple different verticals. And it was through this view of integrated hardware where maybe you don't even see the keyword, you just see a system providing useful value. And inside of that, there might be, and for sure it will be a hybrid quantum classical device where some very clever quantum person has coded it so that the end user has no knowledge of the fact they're using a quantum computer. It's just being compiled and using subroutines within that system that take advantage of the quantum advantage without anyone outside actually seeing it. So I think we spent a lot of time sort of talking about how that might evolve, which was all really useful. And there was one last point I was going to mention. I think just sort of at a geographical level, a lot of discussion around how sort of regions, how important it is for regions and different hardware and software approaches to start more and more to differentiate themselves. So very obvious but important recognition that this is a global community, and that as we all know, because we're all sort of talking to everyone internationally, that makes it incredibly important that as this industry evolves, that each player is careful and can articulate their differentiator in the wider landscape. And what was really interesting for me is to hear how that applies to regions as much as it does to hardware and software. So not sure how much distinct output there was from that. It's a very broad discussion, but really, really interesting just about how the life cycle of quantum will evolve.
No, it's good. I think you touched on a point there, which I think is really important that I've seen in other industries and that as well, is that these new value chains and these new architectures of hardware, software, applications in different sectors, these are global issues, and whether you're UK or a region or a corporate, I think you have to understand where you're going to fit in that new value chain and what the rest of that ecosystem is. So I think it's important as we go through this quantum future, we're going to be learning or trying to get our heads around those things and that as well, which hopefully comes from discussion from your peers in other sectors. Thank you all very much. Thank you to Ilana, to Kai, to Prem for your fantastic your input on that today, and also to the facilitators who've done a great job. So really appreciate that. So thank you to you all, and we look forward to connecting and keeping in touch with you all. So have a good evening, good morning, wherever and that you are. So thank you all very much.
Thank you
very much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.